So, with some of these factors we have mentioned here, can Nigeria's economic growth rate return to its previous high after exiting recession? That's the question to be asking Head of Research, FSDH Merchant Bank, Ayo Akinwunmi, who joins me in the studio. Many thanks, Ayo, for joining me. And I'm glad you're joining me, because before the announcement by the NBS, you were in the studio, and of course, part of your prediction was that the country would exit recession, but it wasn't very sure if it was in the second quarter. First of all, let me get your reaction on that.
Thank you very much, Mr. for having me tonight. I think it's good that we eventually exited recession, the first one in over 2 decades. However, if you look at the number that was published by the National Bureau of Statistics, it's still very fragile, 0.55. And again, if you look at what contributed to that, we have seen that the largest sector of the economy, which is agriculture, crop production dominating that, yes, grew, but at a decelerated level, 3.01. About a few quarters ago, we had 4.5%. Now, this quarter was the first quarter since Q4 2015 where the oil sector grew. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the quarter recorded the lowest growth rate in agriculture since 2015 first quarter. Now, crude oil production has actually fueled that growth rate. Going forward, we expect that the kind of growth rate that we will likely see going forward will be the kind of growth rate that will be achieved by deliberate policy implementation by the federal government, either the monetary policy or the fiscal authority, to ensure that we return to sustainable growth rate. The growth rate that we had recorded before we entered the recession was on account of what I call sheer luck, because of the fact that we had a higher price at over $100 per barrel. We are not going to say that. Most of the forecasts we are seeing across the world now is about $50-something per barrel.
Exactly. Let's talk about the risks inherent in this performances we have seen in agriculture, in oil, and of course the domestic challenges. First of all, let's focus on agriculture. The risk inherent is that there could be climatic variations, especially talking about the global warming. Now, what is the government doing in that area? Because it's very, very important. Yes, as you said, sheer luck. It could be sheer luck that we were able to get to that point. Now, these risks are there.
I think for me in Nigeria, looking at what the short-term outlook is, the global warming is not even the major problems that we have in Nigeria. It may be a major problem in that part of the world. The major problems are, number one, security challenges, the cattle rearers. We have also seen the Boko Haram problems, activities, infrastructure, wastages of agricultural produce, the fact that we do not have, the seedling that can generate good yield on farmland that the farmers are producing on. So those are the major challenges that the sector has. So we have infrastructure problem, which does not allow those produce to get to the market easily, number one. Number two, and so leading to wastages. The storage facilities for those agricultural produce is not there also. And I think in your intro, you talked about the fact that the government is trying to concession that, which is, I think, which is very good to enable, to bring in private sectors to develop, to invest in that area. Then we also have the fact that we have low yield on agricultural produce. So if government can actually tackle those three factors, I think it's going to increase production and activities in that sector that will ensure that we have more. But in your
view, is the government doing enough in that area?
Well, government does not have...
Because most times we seem to see it on print rather than in action.
I think that they could do more, far much more. However, the government does not have any choice than to do those things that we have been talking about all this while. The need for them to involve the private sector in moving this economy forward. They've been discussing about adopting private-led growth. But we've not seen that in real sense. Sure. But they have to do that now. Government does not have the kind of money that would actually ensure that we have a sustainable growth rate, injecting such money into the economy. People talk about, 300 billion as the infrastructure deficit that we have in Nigeria. Depending on the exchange rate that you use, that's over 100 trillion naira. where will government get that kind of money to invest in infrastructure? And you need good infrastructure to ensure that you have a competitive economy that will even produce non-oil products that can boost export and that can grow the economy on a sustainable basis. And that's why I'm saying that government needs deliberate policy to ensure that we have the kind of growth rate that will be sustainable going forward. Because
all right. Exactly. Yeah. Government needs that. But another main driver for that second quarter growth, GDP growth, is crude oil. And we know that there is already a fading demand for crude oil, especially from our major buyer, China, which could hamper recovery. Many countries now are even talking about banning the use of petrol cars. It should be a major source of worry for the Nigerian government now. I think it should be. Each time I read that plans, it gives me a lot of concerns. But I think the government is not unaware of that. Like I mentioned, we have other segments of the economy. We have trade, we have information and communication, we have solid mineral that the deposit is spread across the country. So for me, when we are talking about the fact that companies are going to ban the use of petrol or diesel cars across the world, the slump in oil prices, the government need to look at it as a blessing in disguise, giving us opportunity to develop the other sectors of the economy that are not subject to the volatility in oil price. We have solid mineral deposit in all the states across the country. We have crude oil deposit in some regions of the country. So if government can involve private sector to develop that sector, we're going to have a growth rate that is balanced. Yes, Ayo, we have it, but I'm afraid we just talk about it. We don't actually see it in action. We don't see the government actually putting it out there for it to be explored. But let's talk about, we see that the monetary policy seems to be doing something, especially when it comes to the Naira, shoring up the Naira against the dollar. But we still have the issue of the multiple exchange rates, which continues to deter investment. Yes, I do believe that the Monetary Policy Authority has done very well in trying to manage the inflation rate, the fragile exchange rate thus far. And when you have this kind of, challenges, there are some policies that they will need to bring in place to address the challenges. And that's exactly what we have been doing thus far. Remember that if we allow exchange rates for some items, like for instance, the major importation of fuel into the country, PMS, it means that it may even, add to the inflation rate that we have in the country. When we have stability, more inflow of dollars come to the country, as we are seeing now. The central bank will not have any choice than to ensure that we have just one uniform exchange rate, and they will move to that level very shortly. All right, Ayo Akinwunmi, we must leave it at that. And I'm very sure that the government is working towards ensuring that this reality we have facing us now is worked on to ensure that, of course, the growth rate which we want, of course, which the IMF, the World Bank all predicted will come to pass in Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time, Ayo. We appreciate it. Thank you.